Right, I'm sitting here with Paula Southgate, candidate for mayor, and no, just mayor, isn't it?
Just mayor.
Yes, I get so used to doing the "and" bit. Just mayor.
Just
so
mayor.
You putting all your eggs in one basket and going for the big prize.
Yeah, I am. I guess. Well, I've been in local government politics now for 18 years. I've had a lot of national roles, regional roles, and local roles of responsibility. And I feel that I have enough to offer council to have another go at the mayoralty. Of course, I was very close last time, just 6 votes. 0.03% or whatever that was. It was tiny.
I think no matter which way it goes this time, I think the difference is going to be very small. I think the difference between the top three is going to be very small.
That could
anyway.
be the case. That so could be the case.
But
I guess one of the interesting things is that last time I ran, and I ran for council at the same time, I got 2,000 more votes to become the top polling candidate on the east than either Andrew or I got to in the mayoral race.
Oh, okay.
So
That's
was
interesting.
So
Yeah.
very much favoured as an east candidate. I hope I can switch some of that loyalty over to the mayoral seat.
Yeah, and I think your chances are pretty good. To be honest, in my view, it is only really a 3-horse race. The biggest problem is the number of extra candidates. I mean, it's a 3-horse race really between you and Andrew and Angela, right? What complicates it from the point of view of where the votes go is the smaller ones. That'll soak up a few votes.
Maybe, but then when you think about it, there's always been a range of other votes. Last time there was a range of other votes. There were just as many candidates. The top 3 at that time were reputed to be myself, Chris Simpson and Rob Pascoe. And the result proved to be quite different. So we never say never.
Yeah, you can never tell. You can theorise all you like, but you don't know for certain.
No, that's right.
But what are the main reasons, other than you've been involved in local government for some time? You moved from regional council to city council.
Yes.
And so apart from that obvious experience, what are the main reasons you think people should consider voting for you?
For a start, the other reason that I'm running is because I want to make a positive difference to the way that council runs. It's not just because I came very close last time. That's not the key driver, although that gives me some encouragement. And I certainly get a lot of encouragement from the general public to have another go. The main reason is that I want to create a council that's more positive,
okay,
more respectful. That's really important to me, and more inclusive of the general community in the way that we make decisions. I would not be happy, no disrespect to Mayor Andrew as a person, but I do not want to sit another term under that leadership. So I've got to sort of, put my money where my mouth is and say that I would do things differently than that. And I would. I would have a huge focus on public participation in the decision making, a huge focus on community engagement for a start, and huge community focus on community-led development, where the community starts to think about what they want for their communities at a very early stage.
Okay. Well, that's interesting because as I've spoken to some of the other candidates, both mayoral candidates and council candidates, Hamilton is in a situation where we're needing to seriously look at the direction we're heading in and the shape of Hamilton to be, not just being physical shape, the social shape, the whole lot. And that also comes down to how council itself works, as in the councillors sitting do their thing, and how that works in with the actual workers in council, because if that collection doesn't get on and doesn't work together, that's going to slow down the development of Hamilton and the direction we're going in.
Well, possibly. I mean, the truth is, at the end of the day, things always get done under any mayoral leader and any council. they do get done. There might be a variety of priorities and things might get more emphasis than something else. But I believe we can maximise the potential of council if we do better. For example, I want to create council where every single one of those 12 elected members is invited to input into the ideas and to help devise solutions to some of the city's problems.
Okay.
That means that you have to have a willingness to listen to other members, but also to use them, to maximise their skills and experience, and to recognise the fact that every single one of them was elected onto council by the wider public, and therefore have a mandate by the wider public to represent them. And in this term, I don't think everyone equally has been included or involved in some of the projects where they could have. And that's just my private view.
Yeah.
And, you know, people can choose to disagree with that. But I believe that you've got a job as a leader to lift the talent within a team, to really inspire and engage everyone. Give them something really meaningful to do, and then you get a more engaged and more positive council. And while we're talking about more positive, let me say that there's a number of things around the public participation that I don't like. And one of them is, far be it from me to take a negative approach, but one of them is the online surveys. I think they don't reach enough people. Sometimes people find out after the fact that they could have answered a survey or could have participated in some way. The other thing is that those public forums, you know, I've had a beef with those for a very long time. People get to speak to 5 minutes, and questions are discretional of the chair or the mayor who's leading that committee. Okay. So sometimes, even though people have made a huge effort to bring information to the table, they're unable to have the elected members ask them questions because they've run out of time, or the meeting's running very tight and we haven't got time for this. Well, that's all wrong. This is a public democracy. Yeah. The public have a right to be heard respectfully, which also means that councillors should not be on their cell phones and such when the public's speaking to them. Yeah. And just really be engaged with council. But coming to council for 5 minutes is the last point of contact we should have with them. We should be in with the community all of the time. We should be where the community are.
Yeah. And like you're saying about when you're speaking in council on whatever issue, submission or presentation or whatever, the other thing that must be annoying for councillors is when they do actually have a question that they want to ask, to get some extra information, because you can only make good decisions if you've got good information, can't you?
That's part of it. You need good information, and you need it in a time where you can really digest and understand it. And so I will say no to any more of these reports that arrive 2 days before a major decision point. That's not right in my view. You can't expect people to make really influential decisions on the material they've only received a few days prior. The other part of that is that I value other people's input. So in our updates, which we don't call workshops, we call them updates, because generally the staff are providing us with some really useful information. And like you say, if we're lucky, we're allowed to ask 1 or 2 questions. I would prefer to have an engaged conversation with my fellow colleagues, because I genuinely want to have them point out the pitfalls or the strengths or the arguments in that forum, not necessarily in the formal council meetings where the decisions are made.
Sort of like having a sit round talking about it.
Like workshops. Now, I know that the idea was to make sure that not much got decided in private, that things were flushed out into the public.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree with that. But I do think there's a place for colleagues really sitting down together and asking blue sky questions, asking silly questions because they genuinely don't know the answer and they need to know. That's a collaborative way of leadership that I like.
That way, when you come together in a meeting, you're prepared to actually then make the decisions in the meeting. Yeah. Because there's any issue, be it how you're going to deal with sewage, to how you're going to deal with drinking water, all these things, there is a lot of factors to be taken into account. And once you can ask people these questions and discuss it with them, and discuss things and find out that a viewpoint you had might have missed out some important piece of information. And once you've got that, it's going, I never realised that.
For sure. And look, I've changed my mind when I've heard the debate of other colleagues. I have. I've been some decisions which I thought, I'm not quite sure how I feel about this. Someone has said something that's persuaded me to either give it a trial or to adopt that position. That's part of the whole process.
Yeah, because any individual in any situation can have a favoured leaning. Like, for instance, you might be very conscious of the environmental side of things, but haven't really fully contemplated the financial side of it and all the aspects of that.
Yes.
And things like this. And once you sit down with someone, like I found out some things just doing these interviews, talking with Mallet and Pascoe, that made me think about a few other things differently than I had before.
Yeah.
And surely if that's happening in an interview like this, that must be happening when you get the chance to have those discussions.
Well, I think that's part of the frustration, is that sometimes that's left so late that councillors are trying to have that level of engagement at a council meeting where the decision is going to be made and we've got very little time. I know that Councillor Mallet does feel like that sometimes. He feels like he's shut down when he asks more than 10 questions. But my view is that there should be a place before that where we've really, really digested and looked at all the possibilities and what's the pitfalls. I want a team that says to me, if I were the mayor, oh look, Paula, there's a pothole, watch out, rather than push me in the pothole. They might steer me to the side of the pothole.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of advice that you need, someone who challenges
And those
you.
discussions outside council aren't necessarily making decisions, it's hashing over ideas so that when you come together, you've got all the answers sorted. You can then discuss it with that information and then make a decision.
Yeah. And I think it's okay to actually disagree at council and to have diverse views. That's absolutely healthy. And that's what the general public should be wanting in a council.
Yeah.
But that's got to be constructive disagreement. That's got to be something where it's challenging, but at the end of the day, you can make the decisions and you can feel valued and heard.
Yeah.
That's what good functioning teams all around the world do, best functioning teams.
Because sometimes you do have to compromise. You discuss an idea, you discuss a concept or a project, you then have to, sometimes everyone in that group is going to make some sort of compromise to some degree to move that project to the next stage. Talking on that issue, do you think council could... We've got this thing coming up on Wednesday with the mayoral CAF thing and the debate afterwards.
That's right.
Do you think council could look at some sort of forum now and again where the public get to sit down with, if they want to, with councillors, maybe not the whole council, but do it in clusters, like it might be 3 or 4 councillors this week and 3 or 4 next week or whatever, and actually sit around like you and I are now, and actually have no fear about putting an opinion across, even if most people might think it's ridiculous, putting it across so that you, the councillor, can hear it and look at it and evaluate it and incorporate it into your decision-making process, because you can go, oh, okay, I've never thought of it from that perspective because I don't live in that part of Hamilton.
Well, that's not my sector group and my experience. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You must have been reading my policies and my blog.
Probably have. I've read that much information over this election. It starts to get a bit mixed up.
Because I'm a massive fan and my policies have now been up for about 4 months, I think. And so I proposed a while ago to reinstate some kind of regular forums with various stakeholder groups. I haven't gone as far as saying what they should absolutely look like. Would that be a youth council, a council of elders, an arts council, whatever? I haven't said that. What I've said is we need to design with the community some ways of them regularly engaging with us on their sector interests.
And I personally think having discussions where it's not specific to a specific group, it's where people that have an interest in communicating with council can come along and talk about these issues. It's not a debate situation, it's just giving you their opinion. You take, for instance, the debate with the disability group, right? Yeah. Out of all those council candidates there'd be a large proportion of those people who have never had a reason to fully understand disabilities of any sort, right? I mean, truly, they haven't had to deal with a child or a partner or a family member that's dealing with a severe disability, right? But to be able to sit down in an environment like that and have people tell you what it's like to be in a wheelchair, what it's like to be disabled in some way, be it mental or physical, in particular with physical. Like I've always said, if you really want to know what it's like to negotiate our footpaths, get in an electric wheelchair and go for a ride down some of the suburbs. It's that sort of, if someone can feel comfortable openly explaining to you what it's like to be in their situation, no matter what that situation is, it helps you see it from their perspective. Because if you've never had to confront that ever in your life, you can't easily see it from someone else's perspective until someone tells you the story.
You've got to stand in other people's shoes. That's the whole point. And you've got to recognise that as governors, and even as the mayor, you're not the ultimate leader, the ultimate person who knows it all.
No.
You are the person who... Oh, noisy bus. You are the person who leads the team through the necessary debate and discussion to reach a point of understanding. And to do that, you've got to get the input of people who know about those issues. I'm very passionate about that.
And the other thing, as mayor, the one thing, this is I've always said to people, the one difference between a mayor and a councillor is the fact you're the one that gets pushed out in the public view when something's happening and events happening, people are visiting. And I think
absolutely, the mayor is there to lead a team to start off with, but they are the standard bearer for the organisation. So they've got to be able to stand up with confidence and uphold council's position, the democratic position that council has made. And sometimes that democratic decision will go against what you personally may have voted for, but that's life. The mayor is not there to determine the outcome. The mayor is there to lead dialogue and debate and discussion and bring good ideas to the table, and then to be a champion for good ideas.
And you are one of the candidates that I personally have seen out in the public space a fair bit, involved in different things, and it's you go to an event and it's a community event, and it's like you look around and go, which one of them's here today? And I think my personal view, and this also from a few other people I've talked to, is that we need I don't want to say leader, we need a mayor who can represent us well when interacting with dignitaries or visitors, or turning up at Anzac parades, or giving medals or prizes or certificates, or just take the citizenship thing, presenting those, who can do that and can be well spoken, because that's totally different than sitting in the council room with a bunch of councillors hearing submissions or discussing things. Yeah,
there's many parts to the role, and that is an important part. You do have to be a brand ambassador, you have to be a flag waver, a standard bearer, a champion, and all of those good things in the public. You do. And of course, I was that person when I was chair of regional council as well, but picking up on the second bit, which I agree with you, you've also got to be a person who gets amongst the people, because that's where I find out what's going on. And the world has changed, and people want somebody who's among them all of the time, not just in an election year, just to be naughty, but that does happen, who's among them, who's genuinely interested in their issues, who knows that we can't fix everything, we're one vote, but who knows that we're there to listen and engage with them. I love that part of the route, to be honest, and you're right, you see me at
all sorts of things. It helps that you're a little bit taller than most of the rest of the crowd, so it's easy to spot you as well.
I'm possibly a little bit busier than usual right now, but generally speaking, I'm still doing what I've always done, which is get out and amongst the public. And when I was the chairperson of the regional council, it was the same thing, except my backyard was bigger then. I had to be in Taupo, I had to be in Whitianga, I had to be around. But I love that stuff, because that's how you find out what's happening on the ground in the area that you're responsible for.
Also, it creates a very positive atmosphere for the people, because if we see our mayor out at these events, we go, oh, the mayor's here, or and same with other councils as well, but in particular the mayor, you feel prouder of your town because your mayor is showing up, and that makes you feel good. If you never see your leader, you start to... And I know this from experience with living in Te Kuiti, when the Te Kuiti Council went through a stage where you hardly ever saw the mayor at anything. And that was one of the things that prompted Mum to run for council, amongst also making Te Kuiti look prettier. And she was determined to do that. And she felt that as a councillor you had to be seen at things. And for us as kids, can't remember what age we were, but early high school, it was a right pain in the backside, because for 3 years...
My daughters would agree with you.
For 3 years, Mum was always out at something. You had to, literally, her own children had to book appointments for her.
Oh, no, it's not that bad. My daughters would not say it was that bad, but actually they've grown up with it, because you know, the youngest was, she's 6 or so, and I got onto regional council.
Oh, okay.
And so they've grown up with politics and public service.
Yeah, for me and my sister, it was a bit of a shock to the system. At early high school, all of a sudden Mum's on council, and it's, she's not just around all the time. She's around for the rest of the city, because she's at this, going out to this function tonight. There's AMP show, so she's going along to that, and all these sorts of things. Yeah,
that's exactly right. And look, you can be in the supermarket buying your groceries, and people will talk to you there, but I don't mind that.
Yeah.
Because I believe that I've put myself up for a public role, and I would prefer that people came up to me and said, "Oh, hi Paula, can I just talk to you for a minute about whatever?" Or can talk to me anywhere. I want to be approachable.
Yeah.
I am approachable. As I am on my Facebook page, people are invited to openly share their views, and I don't take any views off. I just expect people to be
civilised.
Respectful of other people's views and polite.
Yeah.
So I don't tolerate any aggression or rudeness, but outside of that, people have a diverse range of views, as they can with me, and I won't always agree. But come up and say hello to me, because I'm that sort of person.
And that's the thing with technology, is not only can people approach you in the supermarket and wherever on the street and chat to you or things like this, we've got the technology now that they can do it through social media and various other means. It shouldn't be just someone like me sitting down talking to you, and people that being the only connection. It should be. You should be able to walk up to our councillors on the street and ask them questions and discuss things. And yes, I can understand it must take a certain amount of patience at times, because you sort of have to allow for that in your day, and go to the field days and find that you spend more time talking to people who want to communicate with you than you do. But I think that's something a good councillor, in my view, and I'm taking this from Mum, a good councillor gives up a portion of their life and their freedom for 3 years to be able to be accessible to people. And then once you've decided that, no, I don't want to be accessible anymore, that's when you stand down and let someone else take that role.
That's right.
And Mayor is a different level altogether. That's that bit up, because you're the figurehead for Hamilton at that stage, and people have all sorts of things to say about whichever mayor. It doesn't matter who's mayor, someone's going to say something bad about whatever mayor's in. But on the whole, people look up to the mayor and go, "Oh, that's the mayor of our city." And if they know they can approach you, it gives them a better feeling about Hamilton as a whole, I think.
And I know that when I'm elected as mayor, that won't change, that I will still be Paula. I will still be the person you can come up to. I want to be that person. And, that won't change, because that is part of the job.
That'll be cool. Because I've enjoyed my every 2 or 3 months interviews with our current mayor, going in there and just on whatever general... Sometimes it's a topic he's got something to say on, because I believe by doing those interviews, people are seeing it from his mouth. Now, if he says something people don't like, or he messes it up, that's what they're seeing. And I quite enjoy those, because it's a chance to discuss a topic and have it out there pretty much unedited.
Look, you're not going to, when you're appearing in public and you're talking in an event, they're not going to be able to edit that either. So you just do your very best. You bring your values and you bring your best to the table. That's what I think being mayor is all about. That's what I look forward to. But, it comes with a lot of really amazing benefits and advantages the opportunities I've had, the people I've met, the things I've done, the things I've seen, outstanding. I'll always be grateful for that, and I'll always be grateful for the support I get. I get lots of lovely support. I have to say that in this new age of social media and technology, there is a downside to that. There is a side in which people can hide behind their name on Facebook or Messenger or something and say things that they feel they have a right to say without challenge, that may not even be correct. And I've had that happen with me, where people have forwarded me on examples, messages that someone else has said, even quoting me. And never have those words come out of my mouth, and nor ever would they.
Yeah.
And everybody who knows me well goes, well, that's not Paula. We know that's not Paula. So I would just say with one thing with this upcoming election, people have to do a little bit of homework.
Yeah.
They don't just watch one video on even yours.
Yeah.
Don't watch one video on social media. Don't look at one post on Facebook and make it mine. Do a little bit of looking behind.
Yeah.
See what those candidates have offered, what they're about. Approach them personally. And I've come up with a saying for this campaign, because I have had a little bit of mischievous mistruths being spread. If in doubt, check it out.
Yeah.
I am approachable. And if I said something, I will own it.
Yeah.
And I might say, well, I know you won't agree, but this is what I've said.
Yeah.
But I might equally say, no, I don't believe that is what I've said, and this is how I feel about it. And that's a respectful thing, to give people a chance to talk for themselves.
Yeah. And admittedly, I'm not afraid to actually go and ask, I heard this about you. Is this true? Or
Yeah.
Because that's my nature. Right? I think.
That's a nice bite.
Yeah.
That's a really nice bite.
I think people need, at this time in particular, even if all you do is once every 3 years, you honestly investigate and look at the truth behind the people you're electing and choose the ones you want. People do forget that you don't have to choose 6 candidates on each side of the river. You can just choose the ones you want. And if that means there's only 2 or 3 candidates that appeal to you, then that's all you choose.
Yeah. And I would say about that is that remember that there is not one single politician on this planet who you are going to agree with 100% of the time. And so therefore each politician potentially will let you down in some way at some time. But it's looking at the big picture. It's looking at that person and saying, do they do their best? Do they have integrity? Do they largely represent my values? Do I feel I could talk to them about the issues that matter?
Yeah.
Those, and then picking from that. And that's what I believe.
Yeah, it's defining what you consider to be the important criteria for a mayor or a councillor, and then going down and putting a tick beside the candidates that fit that collection criteria.
Actually, that brings up another topic for me that is close to my heart with this election this time. You're aware that I could spend, if I had it, $60,000 to run for mayor. Now, I know people think we're very well paid as councillors, and we are well paid, but I earned $80,000 before tax, before ACC, before home office expenses, before, KiwiSaver, and I don't get a contribution. So, in real terms, it's a little less than that, and I'm not complaining. I think it's a fair salary indeed, and I work very hard for it. But if I were to spend $60,000, I would be spending a year's worth of my salary to get my job back. Now, that's pretty hard. And what we're seeing out there this time is some candidates who've clearly got some funding. It's not a bad thing, it's just a statement of fact. They've got some funding, or they've got some backing, some significant backing. They're able to purchase those big billboards, which are, upwards of $1,500 per billboard.
Gee, they're that much. Okay.
Yeah, they're expensive.
I knew they were expensive.
Very expensive. And they're able to buy a whole rack around the paper, which is worth $8,000, and so on. Having my car with the plastic print on it was $1,600. So you can see how it adds up, right?
Yeah.
Is it a level playing field? Because I tell you what, my budget won't go over $30,000 even if it gets there. So I'm contributing around $12,500, or have done so far. And lots of people have donated small amounts. My average size of donation is around $200, and I've managed to raise a good sum. I'll be pleased if I can get to a $30,000 campaign. So, I've already let go of the idea that I can't compete with the big $60,000 campaign.
Yeah.
So I can do this. I can talk to people who want to listen to me. I can share my views. And I have my website, I have my Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, social media, all of that. I have the whole lot. But I have to recognise that I'm constrained by the budget, and that's the way it is. And I think it'd be disappointing to me if you could buy results through big billboards. I'm really interested in to what extent
the billboards just get a face recognised a lot. And for those people that are not looking into who they're voting for, and they're just going, I recognise that face, it's easy for them. This is why if you actually look into who you're voting for, those signs actually become irrelevant.
Yes.
In the end. Because the signs actually don't have any real meaning. They just a name and a face and maybe a slogan, that's it. What's got more meaning is looking at the past history of a candidate, the things they say on social media, directly asking questions.
Lance, name recognition sadly is part of it.
Yeah.
And I feel for, not so much myself, because I do have a strong name recognition over 18 years in local government, but 25 in local community roles. So that's not the bad issue. Imagine all those new candidates, the likes of Anna Smart, Kesh, Adu Rafe, Tim Young, coming from, I'm just talking about the East, sorry, because I live on the East, but Sarah Thompson, Louise, how do they get all of that together? I see that Louise is doing a social media based campaign, and it looks very good.
Matthew Small's been out door knocking a lot.
Matthew's been door knocking.
He thinks I think he thinks he's aged 20 years with all the door knocking.
I bet you he's run out some shoes. I mean, I myself have door knocked. I'm not above door knocking. Just because I'm running for mayor doesn't mean I don't door knock. I've door knocked on the west and the east, and I'll be out there again this afternoon. Because I want to reach as many people as possible, because there again, going back to that, I do not have the big budget, so I've got to make every connection with people count.
And that door knocking is a more direct connection as well.
It is. It's fantastic. It's the way you find out lots of things, and people generally appreciate it.
Last thing is, if you became mayor, what would be at the top of your to-do list once you get into office? What would be at the top of your to-do list that you think is most important, that needs to be dealt with first before anything else can be dealt with?
That's a difficult question, because things don't necessarily stack up like that, but we've talked a lot about today about public participation and community engagement. That is a core value for me, doing things better, rebuilding some trust, rebuilding some opportunities for genuine public participation. We've got a fantastic new staff member involved. I heard Natalie speak at the local government conference. I thought she was amazing. She had so many ideas that I know we've yet to implement. So the other big issue is, of course, about rates and finances.
Yes.
That is the number one issue.
You can't avoid that.
You can't avoid that, and nor should you, because you are guardians of the public purse.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting position where in this governance organisation you've got an easy purse to tap into should you wish. But that doesn't mean you should waste any ratepayers' money. No. In fact, every last dollar should be spent wisely. And the chief executive has said that he is able to produce $93 million over 10 years of savings. Okay. We're going to keep him to that, because we need to make sure we're running as lean as possible as an organisation, not wasting any dollar. There are a lot of other things we can do around competitive tendering, smart procurement, shared services. All of those things come to the table to save the ratepayer money. I was not happy with the big rates increase.
Yeah.
I can't be hard pressed to find somebody who thought it was a really brilliant idea. And it took us by surprise. And I did my very best to negotiate it down from the 16% to where it landed with the 9.8%. Was I happy with that? No, not really. But democracy prevailed.
Yeah.
We're predicting around a 3.8% going forward for the next 5 years. I'm only thinking 5 years ahead. And I believe it should not go above that. And if possible, come below. But remember, we also have to pay that debt.
Yeah.
So if we are able to make some savings, some cost efficiencies, and I really hope we do, I'll be pushing for that, then we need to look at both reducing our debt and reducing the impact on the ratepayer. I'd love to make myself popular overnight by saying I'm the mayoral candidate that will bring down your rates, or I'll stop rates from ever growing again, or whatever the proposition might be. But I won't promise that because I'm not sure that I could deliver it.
Yeah.
But I know I can deliver the 3.8 because that's what's been forecast,
Yeah.
or less,
Yeah.
or less. So I don't want to be pushed into a tight corner and people say, well, what quantum? I'm saying I'll look for every saving I can.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is because we still want certain services incorporated into being paid by our rates.
Yeah.
But there are areas where we could make savings by doing things more efficiently or differently.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we've got to have that conversation with government. But on another matter, why I also don't promise artificial reduction of rates is because we've got a very ageing city with a lot of old buildings and facilities and infrastructure.
Yeah.
And I've seen this firsthand when I became chair of Community Services and Environment, and I took a trip to all of our facilities, the libraries, the crematorium, the pools, the playgrounds, the parks, to see what was going on, so that I understood the work that I was leading. And I was appalled. There's no smaller word for it. I was appalled at the state of Waterworld. I mean, you pick up the flooring material with your bare hands and crumble it.
Yeah.
All the acoustic tiles had fallen off. The water filtration was over 30 years old. Now, come on. How's that right? That's not right.
That's not good.
No, it's not good. The municipals that have been closed, I know there is a Tomo underneath, potentially, and I know that the Founders is closed. And we know the reasons for that. The London Street River Walk just across here, that's still closed, thankfully coming on board next year. But how long has that taken? So, look, people do
I ride the river a lot during summer. It gets really annoying when you get partway along and it's closed, and it's closed for a long period of time to the point where you just get used to going around it, coming out on the road and going to the next bit.
It's a shame.
Yeah.
So what the point I'm making for that is not to slap previous council around the ears. I know that what they did in terms of pushing back renewals and maintenance was to focus on debt. And in actual fact, they did bring debt down. But we can't keep squeezing our community assets. We can't keep deferring maintenance and renewals. We just can't.
Because eventually, if you defer it long enough, it falls apart completely.
That's right. I mean, everybody's got to paint their house every so many years. Everyone's got to repair things in their property that don't last forever. And council's a guardian of public facilities. I believe we're worthy of a good aquatic centre. I think we're worthy of good community houses, and some of those are getting very old now and need some love and attention. I think we're worthy of good libraries. And actually core services like our sewerage and our water have to be in top condition. It's not all right, and the Mayor Andrew has spoken about this, I know he has. It's not all right in high rain events for sewerage to bob up on the lawn in the Hamilton East because it's an old part of town.
Yeah.
So those things we've got to address, and we are addressing, but we've got to spend money to do it.
And as we're increasing in population, it's becoming more and more urgent / important to deal with that, because we're getting closer to the point where you don't have any option. Otherwise, it starts to become a severe problem. It's not just something that needs dealing with; it becomes a severe problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, I haven't even touched on growth, which is a whole separate conversation. Would take us another 20 minutes. But look, we've got to provide for growth. We can't stick our head in the sand and say that we're not growing, because we're growing every month. We're getting a more diverse population as well, as you know from going to the citizenship ceremonies and the like, more and more diverse.
Yeah.
We've got to respond to that.
I like the diversity.
I do. I love the diversity.
Cool.
As you know,
I've met some very interesting people. Yeah.
I love our diverse communities. I attend a lot of events in the ethnic communities. I'd love to see more of the wider community go to those, because they're just fabulous. There's so much talent and culture in the city. It's great. Yeah. So we are growing. We've got to respond to that. There's affordable housing, and goodness, if only I could, solve that genie out of the bottle and solve that, but I can't. It's a complex problem. Government's got to be involved. We've got to look at alternative funding mechanisms. But what is quite clear is we need to provide housing for a range of people.
Yeah.
Not just those that can afford it, but we need solo parents, we need older populations, we need large families, we need first-time families.
Yeah.
All of those need an option for a healthy, warm and affordable home. And believe me, that's not an easy fix, no matter what anybody says.
No. And I think Ryan had a good point at one point last night when he said there's certain goals that Hamilton has that fit in with central government goals. Things to do with climate change, housing, infrastructure, all these sorts of things. If we can work with central government so that they start funding some of this as well, or help with the funding, and for instance, housing is one, climate change. If they want to accomplish goals as a government, then they need to take the time to help the councils all around New Zealand to achieve those same goals. They can't just say to the council, "This is the goal. You've got to figure out how to do it." Because if central government and local government all around the country work together, they can come up with some creative solutions with funding from government to help, and because these things can be accomplished with putting heads together.
Yeah, well, they need to be accomplished to that scale because we are all part of the problem and all part of the solution. And the good thing about Hamilton is we're well placed in the centre of the North Island to be of assistance with the government in an economic sense and an affordability sense. We can attract families to live, work and play here because we've got a really good offer. So it's working with government to persuade them that and send a little bit of money down the pipeline. Anyway, I'm getting cold, but last
thanks
question.
Very much.
Is that it?
Yep, that's it. Thanks very much.
Brilliant.
And good luck in the election, and it's a fun experience. But then
Yes.
I like my election stuff, so yeah.
Well, good on you for being interested in the political world of Hamilton. You always have been. I appreciate that. It's good. And, this is what we need, people to be part of that conversation going forward. So,
cool.
Might see you on the other side. We'll see you on the other side.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Cool.